Hey there, Taylor from Count here. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the Count notebook and specifically how it might be similar or different to other notebooks that you're used to using. So first off, we're in a blank notebook here, and I want to talk about the table menu on the left-hand side. So this is where we can see the tables that are available for us to query. So this is the first way that Count might be a little bit different than other notebooks that you're used to. So Count runs directly on your SQL database, which means you don't need to spin up a server or bring your data into any other location. Count will send queries directly to your database and get the responses back. So it should be a much quicker setup to get going and much easier for a lot of members of the team to go ahead and start building notebooks. Now, right underneath this, you'll see we have a cell menu here, and as we start to build up the notebook, you'll see the cell menu start to populate, and I'll come back and explain a little bit more about how that works. So in the body of the notebook here, there's another thing that will be a little bit different to other notebooks you might be used to using. So first of all, in other notebooks, a lot of times you have to create markdown cells to add text to your notebook. In Count, you can type text anywhere you want. So I can say, and this is nice because I don't need to memorize any markdown syntax or anything like that. I can really just focus on creating the story I want to create, and I can put in the data as I want to kind of create the flow I want to create. So when we are ready to start doing an analysis, we can create cells, and we do that by hitting the slash button. Now, the main types of cells that we'd be using are SQL cells, where we can literally just type in any kind of SQL query we want, and Count will go ahead and send the query off to our database and return the results for us. Now, the other type of cell that we saw there was token cells. Now, tokenized cells are really nice because you can build up a query without having to write a single line of SQL. So to do that, I can just drag in the columns that I want. So I can build in some pretty quick queries without having to type anything out. And you can see I have some aggregation options here. I have some nice filtering options. And what's really great about tokenized cells is that once I build up a basic query, I can go ahead and switch it into SQL, and I can continue doing more and more complex things. But I've saved myself quite a bit of time, especially if I've got a lot of filters, to start building that query using drag and drop interface and then jumping over to SQL. So for our tennis analysis, I'm going to start with a tokenized cell like this. And I'm going to bring in all of our match data here. Now I'm going to use a tokenized cell because I'm going to need to create a filter or two here. And I prefer to do filters in a tokenized cell because sometimes I forget all the different values. So it's really nice to just be able to see for sure exactly the syntax that I need to make the filters that I need to make. So in this case, we have now a subset of our matches data for just Grand Slam tournaments that we have here. And I can go ahead and give this a name. And now we can see on the left-hand side, like I said, the cell menu has popped up over here, and now we can see our cell that we just made and all the result columns that we just built. So one of the other ways that the Count notebook is a little bit different to other notebooks is that each of these cells is then something that we can reference in other cells. So instead of a cell just being a block of code, a cell is a subsequent table that we can go ahead and query. So if I wanted to find how many matches of Grand Slam matches each of these players has won, I can say count Grand Slams as wins. And I can just go ahead and point to this cell itself instead of using any of my base tables right now. Nice. And the way this kind of works under the hood is Count will basically turn this into a CTE and send that off to your database and return the results. So this is really nice for a few reasons. First of all, from a logical perspective, when you're trying to build out your analysis, this is much closer to the way that we're thinking about doing our work. So we might first get a subset of the data that we want, and then on top of that, we do a bit of an analysis, and we may chain that analysis all the way down the page. So this makes it much faster to do more complex analysis because we're able to break it down into the logical steps that we're already taking in our heads anyway. Secondly, just from a space perspective, you're not having to input all these subqueries everywhere down the page. It's much easier to read and for anyone else to try to follow what you've done. And the third reason is for trying to make quick iterations on the code. So for example, if I want to update this to not just be Grand Slam matches, but Grand Slam final matches, I can go ahead and update my filter here. And we can see automatically this cell has updated. So because the count notebook is reactive, I don't need to worry about kind of where I've last run my bit of code or if this is going to get out of sync in any way. Everything in the count notebook is automatically synced up. So whenever I make a change here, any linked cells will automatically update, which is just a big load off my mind. The last thing to talk about is how this data can easily be visualized. So instead of me having to download this and go to another tool, I can just click visual and I get a nice little visual here. And I can go in and customize this however I want to. Maybe change the colors, whatever I need to do to get the visual that I need to tell the story I need to tell. Now, the last thing to mention is how Count can help you make your presentation very interactive. So you notice when we hit slash, there were a few other control options here. So if I want to build in just a pretty simple filter so that my users can maybe filter for if they want to see ATP, which is men's players, WTA, which is women's players, I can go ahead and add that here. And I can link that up to my query here. Nice. And now we're ready to see what this will look like when we share this out with the rest of the team. So if I hit publish, I can see a lot of my code has disappeared. It's much cleaner. It's easy for that team to come in, change a quick filter, and get the data right away. And what's really nice is no one has to download anything to get access to this. I can just send the link, and any more changes that I make, the link's always going to update for them. So it's a really quick way to start sharing insights with your team in a way that lets you tell the story the way that you want to tell it. So that's a really quick introduction to the Count Notebook. As always, if you have any questions, please do reach out. Otherwise, that's it for now. Bye.